If you're a Cleveland Browns fan looking for a break from the emotional roller coaster that is the price we pay from loving then hating our Browns, then a big welcome to Cleveland Browns Anonymous, a group therapy podcast to help you survive the season. So let's start our meeting.
Hi, everybody. This is Mike Reilly once again with Brook Reilly, middle of January. Brook, how you doing?
Good on this spring-like day.
Yeah. Well, speaking of spring, they say about spring hope's eternal. So once again, Browns fans trying to look at the glass half full, and maybe we have a little bit of good news with a new defensive coordinator. Do you want to bring everybody up to speed?
Yeah, well, they Browns announced earlier this morning that they have hired Jim Schwartz, who most recently was the Eagles defensive coordinator for about, I think, four years or so, the Super Bowl team. Believe he started his career here in Cleveland with Bill Belichick.
Yep, that's true.
So, yeah, I mean, he's the guy that I wanted. Seems like a no-nonsense kind of guy. And reading an article beforehand, and the journalist was saying how, he is very different in style than Stefanski, which was music to my, that was nice to see, nice to read. They say he's not afraid to get in people's faces. He's not afraid to call people out. He's no nonsense. So I think it's a great pick. I think it's a great hire. And yeah.
Yeah, I was crossing my fingers when I saw the candidates, although I wouldn't have been disappointed with the guy from Miami Dolphins, the black coach, head coach. What was his name again? Anyways, it'll come to us. So, yeah, I wouldn't have been disappointed if they'd hired the Miami Dolphins former head coach. I guess he's now with New England. He seemed to really get a lot out of
Brian Flores.
He seemed to get a lot out of his young Dolphins when he was there. And I guess this is what a couple of things jump out at me when we talk about Jim Schwartz. I can't say that I know a lot about Jim Schwartz, but the main quality that he has is he is a proven quality, and not, once again, the Browns going down the road where they have a defensive coordinator or head coach in training, which seems to be their lot. Even Bill Belichick was a head coach in training, and people don't realize he hit some major speed bumps. I mean, Brook, you were 6 years old when Bill Belichick got the boot from the Browns, and a lot of people thought he was a disaster. And certainly his drafting was a disaster. But then again, Bill Belichick was connected to the Cleveland Browns dysfunctional organization where everything goes to die. You had Art Modell sticking his hands in everything. You had a Machiavellian power struggles continually between front office, those whispering in Modell's ears, and the head coach. So, Belichick got a rude awakening. And then, of course, he ends up with the Robert Kraft era with Scott Pioli, a bunch of really great assistant coaches. And the rest is history. But the Browns, from Eric Mangini to Pat Shurmur, Romeo Crennel as a head coach. I'm surprised they didn't even go after Charlie Weiss, which had been another disaster. Butch Davis, they promoted him from the college ranks. I mean, these people were incompetent as head coaches. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that, we've had a lot of bad luck, or not luck, just bad. We've had a lot of bad experiences with coaches being hired, and thinking they're the next big thing and, some offensive guru. And I guess I remember when it came down to Stefanski versus Josh McDaniels when they were going through the hiring process, 3 years ago or so. And I remember the excited Browns fan in me was saying, "Oh, we got to get Josh McDaniels. Look at what he's done in New England and blah blah blah." And then my gut kind of told me, "He's like, you know what? I think we should roll the dice with Stefanski." And he's kind of under the radar, but everyone that they talk to about him saying, "Oh, he's super organized. He's a good communicator, comes up with good, offensive schemes, and he's coached the defensive side, he's coached the offensive side." And I know that Stefanski's going through some growing pains here. I'm kind of glad that they are giving him a fourth year, although I think this is the make or break year for him. So I think picking Schwartz as his DC was a really solid choice because
I agree.
You need someone on the defensive side who can rile guys up.
Well, I don't think it's
spaces, and I don't think on the offensive side, which Stefanski has his hands on a lot more. I think you need to be a little more composed and laid back. So I'm happy that they picked Schwartz.
You know what? I think there's at the end of the day, great head coaches get the most out of their players. Now, whether that requires them to light a fire from time to time, be a great teacher, be a great motivator, be a great conciliatory person, somebody you could come to and talk to, but somebody who every player knows my head coach understands me and gets the most out of me. Now, with Stefanski, he had a lot of great qualities. He was organized, like you said. People liked him, great temperament, bright coach, et cetera, et cetera. But then you get into what a head coach needs, and that's the X factor. The X factor is, are they leaders? Are these players going to follow them? People, the old cliche that the head coach lost the locker room. Well, that's inevitable when they have no leadership qualities, where they're so reliant on their schemes that they're dependent on. They keep saying, "Well, get me an all-pro middle linebacker, or get me an all-pro this or an all-pro that." The great head coaches will take talent. I mean, all you got to do is look at who's the best coach this year in the NFL. I think you and I are going to agree on this one. Go ahead, Brook. Who's your coach of the year? The best coach in the NFL. And let's leave Andy Reid out.
Sean McDermott.
Okay, I would pick Brian Daboll. But let's spend a little bit of time on Brian Daboll, who has turned Daniel Jones into the second coming of Josh Allen. I mean, watching that Vikings game, Daniel Jones looked like Josh Allen. And I'm watching Josh Allen the game before, and Josh Allen is making a lot of dumb mistakes. He had one stat for Josh Allen this year. He's committed 30 turnovers. Think about that. Between fumbles and interceptions, 30 turnovers. And what's the difference between Josh Allen this year and last year? Last year, he had Brian Daboll. This year, he's got, I forget who he has, but let's look at Mac Jones. Mac Jones last year had Josh McDaniels. This year, he has Joe Judge. And Mac Jones has regressed. Let's look at the impact, again, Brian Daboll's had on Daniel Jones, who everybody said prior to this season was a bust. So we have very, very good coaches on the offensive side. You've got Bill Callahan. We've got Stump Mitchell, and Stefanski kind of oversees that. Meanwhile, on the defensive side, you have easily, I think we've done this count in the past podcast, 4 or 5 all-pros. You had Clowney, Myles
That's
Garrett.
a serious stretch.
Let's just say Clowney was on all-pro at one point. Myles Garrett, not only an all-pro, but
I would safe to say that you have 2, maybe 3.
Okay, well,
Myles
John
Garrett,
Johnson,
Nick Chubb, and Joel Bitonio. That's
okay.
it.
Okay.
The rest
But
of the guys are just guys.
All right, but let's just talk about who we have on defense. You've had Denzel, who's been an all-pro. John Johnson was an all-pro before they brought him and into the Joe Wood system. You have Myles, you had Clowney. You got 4 all-pros on defense. And there was an article in ESPN today in the NFL football that I was talking to you about earlier about Andy Reid. Andy Reid took over a team, the Kansas City Chiefs, who had terrible coaches. Todd Haley was a head coach. Romeo was a head coach. And Todd Haley, of course, he had a brief stay with the Browns until Dorsey realized once again how bad this guy was and let him go and promoted Freddie to take over. Andy Reid steps in, and immediately in the first year, they're in the playoffs. And they didn't have Patrick Mahomes. They had Alex Smith. They had 4 all-pros on a Kansas City Chiefs team that only won 4 games. And then they let whoever, I think it was Haley, they let him go. And Andy Reid comes in, and they've been in playoffs 7 straight years. They've been Super Bowl champs. They've been Super Bowl losers, but they've been in 2 Super Bowls. And it's all because of the head coach, and then, of course, the head coach promoting his defensive and offensive coordinators. And this is where...
No, I mean, it's also because they have Patrick Mahomes.
Well, they were in both playoff games with Alex Smith. 2 seasons with Alex Smith, they were in the playoffs.
But you're not getting those Super Bowl appearances and win without Patrick Mahomes.
I agree, but Andy Reid took a 4-10 team and turned it into a playoff team his first year. Daboll has turned the Giants, who everybody had written off. The Giants have a realistic shot of getting into the Super Bowl, believe it or not. They have a shot to get in. So, head coaching and coaching is all about making players better, teaching them better. And I think one thing that stands out to me with Brian Daboll, like game 3, game 4, I think Daniel Jones did one of his Daniel Jones stupid interceptions, and he comes off the field, and Daboll is all over him. All over him. For like 30 seconds, just reading him the riot act. And as the season has progressed, Daniel Jones looks more and more polished in the pocket. He knows when to run. He has planned runs. He's stepping back in the pocket. The guy looks phenomenal. And that is what you want your coaches to do, is to make them better. And that was the tragedy behind Stefanski and Joe Woods over these last 2 years. This team has drafted talent. And Joe Woods, they were actually regressing under Joe Woods. And I'm hoping with Schwartz, who has at least a proven track record of competency. We're not looking for the second coming here of defensive coordinators like a Bill Belichick was with Parcells, but we're looking for a guy that can collectively get the defense to play at a higher level, or at least where their talent is. That's my point. Still there, Brook? Your thoughts?
Hey, let's stop here. We got to pay some bills. 30 seconds, and we'll be back. Getting your house ready to sell, or You just need some basic repairs. And you can't get anybody to come out or even return your phone call. Then call Reilly Painting and Contracting, your home mechanics, for all of your home repair needs, from electrical, plumbing, roof repairs, and getting your house ready to sell. 45 years in the business, a AAA on the Better Business Bureau, and we're on the preferred contractor list in Cleveland Heights and Shaker Heights. You can contact us by calling 216-371-8160 and leave a message, and guess what? We'll call you back.
Well, my thoughts are I'm happy with the coaching pick, but I'm not going to get sucked into this again. I want to see it for at least a month. Solid defense. I don't need the 85 Bears. I just want to see middle of the road. I think when you say Browns have all pros on the team, I think they have some former all pros. I think they've got some good, solid players, with one or two being, at the top of their position, that being Denzel and Myles Garrett. But they need a lot of help on the defensive line. I mean, the worst rush defense in the league. So, yeah, I agree that coaches get the most out of their players, but you also need some talent on the field. And I think the Browns have some. And hold on, I'm not done.
Okay, go ahead.
And I think that Andrew Berry will be doing a good job, like he's done in the past, with free agency and addressing the needs. I think a bulk of it's going to be on the defensive side, specifically the defensive line.
Well, it begs the question, like, what exactly has the conversations been between Joe Woods and Andrew Berry about what he needs? I think everybody thought 3 years ago when Joe Woods came on that we need to beef up the defensive side. And that's after the Browns had picked Jedrick Wills at their left tackle spot. That was their number one pick. And then and people started saying we need to get now we need to spend draft capital on the defense. And 2 years ago, they got Grant Delpit, second-round pick. They got JOK, second-round pick. They got Newsome, first-round pick. They have been committing draft capital to the defense. And
yeah, but not the line.
Well, they felt they signed some free agents 2 years ago that everybody thought was going to be solid. I think Woods' philosophy is that I want linebackers to be almost like safeties to be linebackers and linebackers to be safeties. So when we play Lamar Jackson, we have a lot of speed on the field, and as a result, stopping the run was not necessarily his priority. I also think that Woods lacks a lot of imagination, creativity. It just seems like there are a number of games where teams have just come in. I'm talking about teams like the Chargers or the Falcons, or the Patriots. Patriots starting a rookie quarterback. The Chargers couldn't break 100 yards in their first 4 games. The Falcons playing somebody, off the practice squad. And all of a sudden, these players look like Hall of Famers against Joe Woods' defense. I don't think that's lack of talent. I think that is just lack of any kind of sophistication or creativity on the defense. I'm watching the Dolphins play against the Bills in that playoff game, and I mean, they were blitzing Allen like crazy. And it's almost like, look at, if we're going to be giving up a bonehead play where you've got 6 guys in coverage or 7 guys in coverage, and we're still going to give up, the guy's going to be wide open, why don't we at least bet the house and put some heat on this guy? I mean, that you never seem to feel like the Browns defense is outwitting the offense. It seems like Joe Woods is always in reactive mode. And he was always in reactive mode, even in the press conferences. When I said we said on our last podcast, he said, we're going to have tackling practice. He's always kind of reacting to what the criticism was. So as a result, when that happens, you get a feeling like this guy really is not in control of it. So I think, it begs the question, and you raised a good point, Brooke, if it's a talent, it's going to be interesting to see how the Browns sign free agency this year. They're probably going to let Kareem Hunt go. That's going to be some cap savings there. And they put it into defensive line. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, defensive line has to be top of the list in terms of free agency. I just think, that or some stud linebacker. But, it's like I said, I don't need top end defense. I just want, professional defense that isn't going to throw away a bunch of games. And I think, honestly, that the last, who knows, but at least the last couple of games, the defense I think they kind of knew that Woods was going to be gone. So, again, it goes back to the head coaching.
Yep. Yeah, it really does. Head coaching, look, you can't blame the players. You blame the defensive coordinator, especially after 2 years where they've invested money between Clowney on the line, Malik McDowell, who was the guy they had tackle the other year.
McDowell.
You're always going to have injuries. But even at the beginning of the season, when they didn't have all these injuries, they were still getting gashed. They were still looking confused in the secondary. So, I'm hoping with the Jim Schwartz, you're going to have 3 All-Pros that are going to develop on the Browns defense next year. It's going to be Newsome, Delpit, and JOK. Those are the 3 guys that, if you have a great defensive coordinator, can get the most out of them, and they can everybody raises their game. So, and then you supplement it with some investment on, like you said, it's all agreed. We need a defensive line, and we need a good linebacker in the mold of the Bills linebacker, Matt
Milano.
Look at the Cowboys. They've got a great linebacker or two that totally changed the style of the defense, and that's what they need. So,
well, I heard Joe Thomas on the sports radio last week when they fired Joe Woods, and Joe Thomas, who knows these guys, he said there's no one on the defensive side, at least when he's been around them, who will get in your face. There's no one like that, and I think on the defensive side, you need someone like that. Like, can you imagine if you're on the Los Angeles Rams last year and you're kind of half-assing it in practice? I'd be terrified of Aaron Donald getting in my face or Jalen Ramsey. I was kind of hoping that Myles Garrett would be that guy, but I just don't think that's his demeanor.
Right.
Getting some defensive lineman, some linebacker who, if you screw up, I mean, he's coming right over you and getting in your face.
I think the hallmark of those shutdown Ds in the past, Ray Lewis with the Ravens, their Super Bowl year. They won the Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer. Yeah, you need those. And I think Myles Garrett is just sort of a easygoing guy who's, he's almost like goofing off. I mean, I can't imagine Ray Lewis having a Halloween setup graveyard of quarterbacks. I mean, to me, that's just sort of Mickey Mouse. You need these. And who knows? I think with the Browns, Andrew Berry puts his head together with Jim Schwartz, brings in Stefanski, and I think they identify that they need a certain kind of player who's going to be the coach on the field, who's going to call these people, a Ray Lewis type. player. And I think Anthony Walker is more of a cerebral kind of player. He's not Ray Lewis, but that was a major loss. But again, it's the Browns defense. You got to feel like this is an attacking defense, not a reactive defense. And that's, I think, where I think a lot of Browns fans have been continually disappointed in the style of this defense. It's not something that's going to put the fear of God in you. It's soft. You can run on them. They can be easily confused. And I think that's a reflection of the defensive coordinator. And I think you're going to see a major upgrade just by A, removing Joe Woods, and B, putting in somebody who's been around the block on all this. So yeah. I agree with you, Jim. Jim Schwartz was a great pickup. Final thoughts, Brook?
Yeah, I think, you've got, I think what the Browns are doing is, hey, I could be totally wrong. And, I'm hearing Stefanski's press conferences and, he's very calm. He's very collecting, he's not saying a whole lot. And like, who knows, behind the scenes, like he could be just, ruthless. So I could be wrong. So, but maybe what the front office is doing is that they're saying, okay, we've got a head coach who we believe in, who is very organized, who's very smart, but he's not very intimidating. He's not very vocal. He's not like the Detroit Lions guy. So let's bring in someone who can balance that out. And I think picking Schwartz over the professor from Temple from the Bears, this super smart young guy. It's like, I was like, hell no. I don't want some other young, super smart. Like, who gives a crap? I want someone who's done the job before, who's had success, and who has been a head coach in the past. And you get all those with Schwartz.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference with, Belichick came in. He was your young, cerebral coach. And Parcells promoted him because he was super bright. But Parcells was the stick behind all of that. And I think that's the difference between the offense and the defense, because I got a feeling like Callahan is in their grill. And, when people say, well, they don't have the talent on the defense, and, that's not Joe Wood's fault, I disagree. I got two words for you. Wyatt Teller. Where did Wyatt Teller come? Ethan Post.
He's on the offense.
Right, the center. Wyatt Teller comes from the Bills as an afterthought. We got Wyatt Teller for a 5th-round pick. They were ready to cut Wyatt Teller on the Bills. All of a sudden, he gets over to Bill Callahan's system. The guy is an all-pro. His first full year with Bill Callahan. Ethan Posick, the center, was brought in on another 5th round. I don't even think we gave up. We signed him because he was let go by the Seahawks. This guy on PFA was grading out as an all-pro status. Again, Bill Callahan. Look at Stump Mitchell. Look at those running backs that we have. They just thrive under Stump Mitchell. So, Stefanski has a coterie of coaches that are focused like a laser in developing the players that they have. I wouldn't be surprised if James Hudson steps in next year and makes a name for himself on that O-line. So that's what we need. And it'll be interesting to see if Schwartz keeps the defensive line and linebacker coaches. And Brook, on our future podcast in the next couple of weeks, we're going to do a deep dive on the free agency, who could be good draft picks for that 2nd and 3rd spot, because those have to be impact. That and a big-time free agency signing on the defensive line, which I wouldn't put. I would think Andrew Berry has it in him to pull a rabbit out of a hat on that defensive line and get like 2 stud tackles to go with Miles, and maybe these other guys can step it up, replacing Clowney. So let's let's scan the waiver wire. Let's see who's coming in free agency. And that'll be the podcast we'll be talking about in February leading up to the draft. That's my final thoughts. Okay, Brook?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be in touch in the next 10 days. Okay.
All right.
Bye.
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 Thank you for listening to the Cleveland Browns Anonymous podcast with Mike Reilly. We have a lot more content on the way as we get this new podcast started. You can also check out some of our other podcasts like the Cleveland Real Estate Investor Podcast and other new ones that will start soon. On any platform that you find yourself listening to us on, feel free to leave us a like or a comment or follow us. It always helps.